From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Spaceboy Universe, featuring Spaceboy and the lovely Surlana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence. And remember, it's Spaceboy's Universe, and you're in it.
Greetings and welcome everybody to SBU. I am your host, Spaceboy, and to my left is the lovely Surlana. Say hello, Surlana.
Hello, Surlana.
Oh, so nice. All right, tonight's show is 008, and today is November 7th, 2015. We almost missed the boat there, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I'm just glad that everything's going smoothly, and I'm sure at some point we'll get confirmation on that. As people have known for the past week, we've kind of switched who we're streaming to and all that good stuff, and this all ties into trying to make a better show for the listeners out there. We're broadcasting live on Spreaker Radio, which now what's going to happen is that once we do the broadcast, it will get put out there into the universe, whether it be YouTube or SoundCloud, all that good stuff. And, of course, we've also worked hard over the past week to upgrade the Spaceboy Universe website. It's no longer tied directly to Spaceboy Music. It's its own identity. And we hope to grow that as its own identity, even though, in a way, Spaceboy Music is a part of the universe. We look at the universe as the primary thing because, as I say, it's my universe, and you're in it, and everything's in it, to be honest with you. So, let's do a few other things. On Twitter, if you want to follow us, the call sign is at the SB Universe. And then to follow the show with the good old hashtags, you want to do hashtag SB Universe. And if you have questions along with the show, it's hashtag SBUQ. That's SBUQ. Hey, Surlana, if they want to become a friend of the show on Facebook, what do they need to do?
Well, I mean, they're going to have to pass a few tests. We're thinking about enforcing that, that American Ninja Warrior thing. That might be a good one to see who's really worthy and really wants it bad enough.
All challenging, but no, you don't have to do that to become a member on Facebook. Yet. But our call sign is Spaceboy Universe. We're very easy to look up. You become a friend. If you're already a Twitter friend, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump. If you've got Facebook, it's the way to go. Also, if you want to say you want to contact the show, we have an email. It's contact@spaceboyuniverse.com. And let's say you want to contact maybe Surlana or myself directly. You can contact her at Surlana@spaceboyuniverse.com or me at spaceboy@spaceboyuniverse.com. One more thing before I start rambling on other things is that we do have a phone number you can call in and talk to us. It's 713-701-5214. That's 713-701-5214. So I guess that pretty much covers everything. So I turn to you, Surlana, and ask you, how does it look out there? Are we actually getting people listening that, compared to last year?
Well, last year when we had no such thing as a webcast, when no one was listening.
What I meant
so things are looking up.
So what I'm saying is last week we had the technical difficulties.
Well, people, there's a couple people tweeting, but they're not really admitting if they're listening or not. And I don't want to get into their personal business, whether if they're listening or not. So,
I'm not going to hold it against them. I mean, they probably, it's one thing to, do the tweet and everything, but when they want to hear the show, I'm kind of the same way. I want to hear the show, and then when something pops up, then we'll go from there.
Just to point out, there is live chat on the Spreaker
Oh, I totally forgot
app,
about that.
I guess, if you're listening through the app. Mm-hmm. And I can see it here on the webpage, and I'm on our live feed now.
Okay.
I don't have it where it's playing, but I can...
Do we have Spreaker victims in there?
Not that I can see. It says we have 3 followers.
Oh, well, it's always a start.
Probably one of them's me and the other's you.
So basically, as we move from there, and I guess you'll just keep me posted on stuff that pops up versus on Twitter and in the Spreaker chat room, so we can keep track of that.
Karen says she can hear us.
Oh, that's awesome. Hello, Karen. So
shout out to Karen.
I didn't realize that the new James Bond movie is out. I just was doing some post show review stuff, and apparently that's out along with the Peanuts thing. And I know that you're thrilled about death about each one of those movies, but I'm a big James Bond fan.
Do you like what's his name? Craig guy, whatever.
See, now you just threw me off. I do like him. At first I was a little apprehensive of him doing the Bond character. But
yeah, because he didn't want to take off his shirt and get in a swimsuit.
Well, he's not.
I don't think highly of him.
He's not pretty like the past couple of Bonds that they've had out there. But as far as he's gone, he's got that. He's a rugged Bond and more action hero type, as far as I'm concerned. But I've been very pleased, and finally, now that they've gotten to the point where they're going with the Spectre angle, it's kind of very reminiscent of the original Sean Connery. Not saying that he's like Sean Connery, because let's face it, Sean Connery's in a class all of his own kind of thing. But he does have a great persona when it comes on the screen and in the Bond that he portrays.
Not to interrupt, but we've got some action in the live chat.
Awesome.
Dave, Karen, Robert.
Awesome. Thank you for tuning in
and
tonight.
I see Billy and Steve.
All right. Just keep on. As I like to tell everybody, if you like the show, you're a friend of Spaceboy, whatever the case, retweet, fave. Let people know that we do have a show out there, and that as we grow the show, it's going to get bigger and better as we go along, and we can't do it without people like yourself. So just keep tuning in, and we'll provide you a great show.
That's me in the chat. It says Spaceboy Universe as the chat, but it's actually me. Not that it matters.
Okay.
Just so they won't think they're talking to you.
So, enough, I guess, of the James Bond thing. As far as, I'd like to go see that, but I know our deal.
Yeah, I don't really care about it, but I don't hate it. Mm-hmm. So you just provide the snacks and,
Well, like
and if I fall asleep, let me fall asleep.
Like most movies, if she doesn't want to go see it, but I'll drag her along, she'll come along as long as I pay for snacks, and I just dangle an icy in front of her, and she's like, ooh.
Oh, I can't wait to have an icy.
See? It's already on the way. So speaking of other movies, I recently saw the new Star Wars trailer, but it's the Japanese version, and it's a little bit different and gives a little bit more.
I can make it to know more.
I don't know. It just, in different countries, they kind of show different things, and it's just nice to have something a little extra.
Sorry, that was me.
To view what we can't see here. I know this movie is people cannot wait to see it. If you get you're not the.
I'm over it.
You don't make a connection like I do to the film, and we've talked about this before about when I saw the trailer when it showed Han Solo and Chewbacca. And how I just about got choked up over the whole stupid thing, but it brought back childhood memories, and kind of back to the 70s, back to the time period where we're going to be discussing about Atari, and more specific, the Atari 2600 tonight. So it's a childhood memory that feels good, and speaking of feeling good, as far as when I saw that, after reviewing some of the games that we're gonna, review or look over with the Atari 2600, I saw some YouTube videos, and I do have an Atari 2600 Junior, which I got off of eBay just for nostalgic reasons to play some of these games, and the sounds and all that sounds wonderful. But we'll get into that in a little bit.
I didn't have an Atari, so I didn't really know as much as you. Mm-hmm. I had an Odyssey 2 system, so.
And we could talk more about that,
which I thought was cool at the time.
Yeah, the Odyssey 2 was very cool. I guess anything you're watching or you've read recently, Facebook, YouTube, news, whatever.
As far as books, you don't want to know about what I've read. So,
well, is it a Jane Austen book?
It could be in that genre, so we'll just skip that.
I'm so looking forward to Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
Well, there's one you'll be going to by yourself.
No, I'll drag you in and pay for the popcorn stuff.
No, that's sacrilegious.
So, is there anything new that you
Again, we could have discussed this beforehand, and I would have had something to tell you. But
if you don't,
press me against a wall.
Just say no. I have static right now.
No, nothing that would interest anyone on the face of the earth, really.
Okay.
Very specific interests.
Just your usual YouTube fail videos, I guess?
Yeah, and just getting angry at stupidity at work and,
Okay. Well, with that, I guess, shall we take our break before we get into the meat and potatoes tonight, Surlana?
I suppose so.
All right. I always like doing these. So when we come back, we'll dive into Atari and the Atari 2600. So don't move a muscle, keep your butt planted right there, and we'll be right back.
No quarters, no problems. Play it at Spaceboy Universe. To call in from live, dial 713-7.
Basically how it works is not too dissimilar to the way an ink printer. Instead of using ink,
You're listening to
filament,
Spaceboy
and it
Universe.
sort of lays the filament down, slowly building out a 3D structure, like what I'm holding in my hand here. Now, once complete, you can most often pull the object right off of the build tray, but sometimes you need to pry it off.
Bear with us as we're having a slight technical difficulty. I have this.
See this, for example, around the edge.
There.
The difficulty is somebody's playing around over there.
Well, no, it's just that it was an advertisement that I had up. So, but we're back. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I'd rather have one of those technical difficulties than I can't get the thing to stream and we're wondering what's going on. So, hey, here we are. It's Saturday night, and we're going to be talking about Atari and the Atari 2600 system. So, Surlana, would you like to start off by saying a few words to kick us off, or
like, dear Lord, please bless this webcast that kind of words, or
no? I was thinking more on the lines like the beginning of the history. I guess the history begins back in the early 70s.
It begins about the time I begin.
Yeah, pretty close.
Close.
You have a guy named Ralph Baer who creates what is called the Brown Box.
Oh, is this the Magnavox?
Yes, that's what we're
Odyssey,
talking.
the first
Pong. It's the first table tennis thing for.
This is a strange little console that has the two little. What are they? Dials on the side?
Basically, it's a box. And the box is ran off of batteries, of all things. And the controllers are like another box. And on the side of those boxes are two dials to help move the position of the paddle to enable, hitting the ping pong back and forth. Now, what's interesting about this is, this guy, Mr. Bear, is promoting this device, and I guess this device gets picked up by Magnavox. So Magnavox goes on a tour trying to show people this, and part of the people who go to check this device out is Nolan Bushnell, who is one of the co-creators of Atari, probably the most known creators of Atari. And so he goes, he checks it out, and he says, I could pretty much do the same thing, and he had been doing I guess, a part of the engineering part of in college, and so he comes out with his version of what he calls Pong. He just shortens it out and calls it Pong.
Because I think you can't call it ping pong, 'cause that's trademarked.
I never
That's
knew.
what he said, yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's a pretty good setup as far as, I could tell, looking over it, and I remember as a kid seeing it not only for home, but also for the arcade. So at some point, what you have is Magnavox, it gets downwind that they've created this, and they get mad, so they decide to sue Atari for...
Like what, corporate espionage, stealing an idea, stealing secrets.
Yeah, stealing secrets. But they end up settling out of court, and basically the agreement is that, we'll go ahead and if you pay us $100,000, you can go ahead and do whatever you want with your thing and, be gone with it. Well, Nolan said, well, great, sure, why not? Because no sooner than, he pays them off $100,000, within a couple of years of them putting out the Pong video game systems, they make close to $2 million.
But the Pong they put out there was not the console Pong yet.
No.
This, we're still talking about an arcade. And what he described as the first machine they put together that was Pong. Mm-hmm. He said they went and grabbed a little black and white TV from somewhere like Radio Shack or something, or Walgreens, and they stuck it in a little box, and they slammed a coin op next to it, and left it in this bar. And they said the people were lined up for their turn to play, and they actually managed to get so many quarters that the coin operation was jammed up and overheating or something crazy like that.
Yeah, but it proved proof of concept that they knew they had something on their hands, and so basically from there, I guess. They had this idea of taking the concept for the video game arcade and tried to take that concept and put it to home use. And they came out with their own Pong unit. And so that's when, you have the first really commercial viable arcade Pong.
Do you remember? Were you old enough?
Yeah, I remember. We had one. I remember.
You had the actual little...
Atari. We had the Atari 1. And it was really cool. First off, I must have been really about 4 or 5 when I, was playing with it. But I still was able, I could wrap my head around it. I watched my parents when they played.
What was the appeal about 2 sticks hitting a dot, you think?
Well, at that time, nothing like that had been in the house.
It's just the novelty of it. If nothing had been done before.
If you really wanted to go and amuse yourself, it would be go to the amusement arcade, and at that time it was pinball machines, and
I still love pinball machines.
And the thrill of it really wasn't electronic based until you get to the Pong thing, and then they start putting these Pong machines into arcades, and they were making hands over fist. Because I believe we were watching something, Bushnell was talking about how he worked in an arcade part-time.
Yeah, or some kind of amusement park.
To get through college. And he was talking about, how some of these things, there were rods and, wood and, just, nothing very complicated. And he said, well, I could easily do that. In fact, I can, set the bar up higher than that and probably make some decent money off that, which, when you think about it, I know I'm getting ahead here, but you know where Bushnell ends up after Atari.
Oh, yes.
So that
craziest.
The arcade thing kind of makes sense.
Okay, now that does make sense, considering that place had a ton of arcade games in it.
Right. I mean, it was really like an amusement park. And what we're talking about is Bushnell ends up, I guess, a part of Showbiz Pizza Time Theater, also known as Chuck E. Cheese's.
And they ended up suing themselves.
Yeah, and that's a whole story all to itself. But so getting back to the thing is that at some point, and I can't remember if it was it the Channel F or let's see here.
I can tell you.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Channel F. It was a machine that was developed, I guess, a precursor to the Atari first home console.
It was a format called the Fairchild Channel F game console. This format had a dedicated hardware, and it was cartridge based.
Yeah, it was basically a home game console released by them, Fairchild Semiconductor, about 1976. The cost for the unit was about $165 at that time, which I guess that puts it about $700, 2015 dollars our time. It was a distinction of being the first programmable ROM-based video game console and the first console to use microprocessors.
Yes, that's what I was reading. So it was clear to see as early as 74, 75 that the cartridge game was the way to go.
Well, I think that the Bushnell discussed about how, as he tried to do things on I guess, a software level, the refresh rate was being bogged down, but the way to go about it was
somehow the system was kept timing out for some of his games, and he just didn't have the oomph to run it.
So the way to go was to embed the games on the board, and
so you have like a motherboard type situation,
right? So that's where you get the cartridges and then the actual systems itself. So we jump ahead, and I know there's probably you go to A to B to C, but
in 77 that's when they start. They released their Atari video computer system, the Atari VCS.
The VCS, yes, and I guess it took out. And now, what I love about the Atari of that time, and it kind of fits around the other devices like TVs and stereo equipment, is that it has this fake wood grain.
Everything in the 70s had a fake wood grain. Your car, your walls of your house that had wood paneling. TV sets, remember TV sets when they were giant pieces surrounded in wood, sat on the floor because it was so heavy it looked like a piece of furniture.
Yeah, my grandmother had one, and it took like half the wall. But what was it?
And it had carvings in it,
Yeah, it was hers. It was a huge TV as it was, and then a part of that TV, it had a stereo and a phonograph in it built into it, and it was really cool. And not only was it cool, it had a remote control, which it was very unique for that time. I mean, they had remote controls going back into the 50s, but it was a luxury item,
And before that, it was called Sons and Daughters.
Yes. If you didn't have the long stick with a pointer on it, you had son or daughter, yes.
But did you happen to hook that giant TV up to an Atari?
No.
Or is that something different?
I didn't have the pleasure of playing Atari on it. I'm trying to think, now you brought this up. My first Atari experience was not on that, but I had my own little TV given to me. And that's when I hooked it up. It was a small, I guess, 13-inch TV, color of all things, too. And I played that on there. And one of the first games that I got, it came along with the system, was Combat, which... was
that the tanks?
The tank game, yes.
See, now, I didn't have one, but I guess this was late 80s-ish. I would go over to my best friend's house, and her younger brothers had an Atari 2600, the wood grain one, and that's how I got exposed to those games. And of course, I was young enough in the 80s, and I would play arcade games if there was, if they happened to have a arcade game at a restaurant we were at. You know, that's how I got introduced to Pac-Man and Centipede, which I love to this day. I love Centipede. If I had one wish to get one of the old cabinets, the original cabinet, I would like a Centipede game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a lot of games. Well, when the unit first came out, it only had about 11 games that came with the system, and so there wasn't many games that it had with the system. Do you recall?
It had well, you know, when they were in '77, they first released, and the console gets sold at Macy's and Sears. So this is when they start to name the VCS to the Atari 2600, and this is what would dominate for years to come. And it stayed strong in sales through '78, and it had fantastic holiday season, and it released Outlaw, Space War, and Breakout. And it was during '78 to '79 when they had that weird thing about Bushnell leaving and starting Pizza Time Theater and Chuck E. Cheese suing themselves and whatnot. But so in '79, they released 12 more games. I don't have a list of what they were. But it was at this time when Atari started facing their first serious competition. Again with Magnavox comes back with Odyssey 2, which is the console I had, which looked very different from Atari because it had like that keyboard on it.
Okay, yeah. So I just found my note card on the titles that were initially released in '77 were Air and Sea Battle, which was a really cool game. I like that. Basic Math, Blackjack, Combat, Indy 500, Starship, Street Racer, Surround, and Video Olympics, which basically I describe Video Olympics as like Pong to the extreme.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was different. You just basically Pong in different configurations to play. But out of that list that I remember seeing in Sears, because you know they'd have a display at Sears that you can go and check out, was the Air and Sea Battle, and all
that
the,
one
all
is
the
that
kids,
the one where you have like a submarine underground and there's like a plane going up top or something like that?
Close. Basically, it had two cannons on the left and right side.
Oh,
and then it used a joystick, and the cannon would move kind of up or down, and it had planes at the top that you'd have to shoot. And I think there was also, since it was air and sea, it had some kind of sub game too, similar to the same pattern of shooting. But yeah, that was definitely a good game as far as the original that came out. Now, also, to note some of the peripherals that came with that unit. You had two joysticks, and this is kind of really cool because you got a lot of stuff with the Atari 2600 when it came out. You had the two joysticks, two paddle controllers, and the interesting thing about the paddle controllers
was this the one that had the twisty thing at the top?
Twisty, and then like it almost looks like a walkie-talkie.
I never saw anyone use that the whole time I was going to visit my friend. I never saw them use those controllers, or maybe they didn't have them.
Well, it was. I mean, unless you had the games to play them, there was a handful of games initially. Well, like the Video Olympics, I believe you could use the paddles. And there was Circus Atari, which I like that one. I was talking about that one where it's about clowns and pop-in balloons. Another well-known game for that time that used the paddles was Warlords. And what was cool about that is you could play up to 4 players with that. And how that happened is it had 2 ports for 2 plug-ins. But the way the paddles were configured, you had 2 paddles, but they were joined together into one plug-in port. So that was
Did you have all those back in the day?
Yeah, because the unit came with the 2 joysticks, one set of paddles, and but we had, my cousins bought an Atari too, so he could bring his paddles over, so we would all play against each other.
I was about to ask you, who were you playing with?
Mostly it was the cousins at the time, but we always had a good time.
I didn't have anyone.
I'm sorry, but now you do. and
like, that's nice, dear.
Yes, that's. Oh, bless your heart. So anyway, so yeah, we cousins would come over, and we would spend the day and doing that, and the joysticks were fun. As far as the paddles were fun playing the Warlords, because you could play up to 4 people at one time. So that was quite the deal.
Well, one thing I've learned when we were doing this research is, at least early on, Atari seemed to thrive off of competition, because that would just push them to do more. So like the next thing they did, so Magnavox Odyssey 2 comes out. So in 1980, they're like, oh, we're going to up the game. They got the rights to a home version from a Japan game called Space Invaders.
Okay. Yeah, Space Invaders.
And people would buy Atari 2600 consoles just to play Space Invaders.
Well, that's a good topic, and why don't we take a quick break here, and when we come back after the break, we'll talk a little bit more about Space Invaders and some more games.
Okie doke.
Level up with Spaceboy Universe. To call in and talk live, dial 713-701-5214. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe. And here's your host, Spaceboy and Surlana.
All right. We're back. So, right before the break, Surlana had dived into Space Invaders. And, that, I have to say, beyond combat, that was probably the next...
It was a frustrating game for me.
It was one of my favorite games. Because,
you know how I can tell it's your favorite?
How's that?
Because we have a set of Space Invaders magnets on our fridge right now.
Well, because as a kid, I remember that in the arcade. And then when you got to play the Atari 2600 version, it was almost exactly... The play style was almost exactly the same thing. It was fun. I spent many hours on it. It was a great investment for the play value, and it's one of the many games that I highly recommend if you end up going...
You mean Space Invaders?
Yeah, Space Invaders. Going hunting for one of these classic units. 2600, you must have Space Invaders.
Let's see what Danny knows about Space Invaders. He's in chat.
Yeah, see, Danny, we got him hooked up with some Space Invaders this last week as being one of the first-time callers, and he seemed to be very pleased with the special gift we sent him. But as we're going on, let's see, Space Invaders. Where do we go from there, Surlana?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just typing is loud. This keyboard is new. It's USB, but there's some strange, freaky stuff going on with it. Like, I'll just be typing, and all of a sudden, whatever letter I'm on, it just starts shooting across the screen.
Kind of like Space Invaders when you got the last.
Maybe it's planned to. Well, so they released Space Invaders in '80, and of course, this is like probably through the roof hit. But this is also when Bushnell sells Atari.
Yes, it's right before... he doesn't even get to see Atari reach its peak as far as...
And what was it like at Atari, the offices of Atari, before he sells it? What's the atmosphere like?
Well, let's just face it. They were partying, they were smoking it up, passing it from the left to the right, and... I think at one point there was no HR people there, so you can only imagine.
They could come and go as they pleased. They were showing up at all hours. They were high. They were stoned.
I mean, they were just.
They dressed casually.
I mean, but they had the money. They were. They just had all this, just freedom to do whatever they wanted to do, and some of the games it shows they have that creative freedom to do whatever. And of course, there are some games you wish could be buried in a landfill in New Mexico.
And they were. So that's what it was like before. But so in 80, Bushnell sells it to Warner.
Yes.
And a whole
Warner Communications.
And now the suits come in and say, oh, okay, everybody's got to be here at 8 or 9. You can't leave at this. You got to wear this. And they said, and you know what? No more video games. This is silly. Let's start making serious computers.
Well, that's not the quick jump to that, but that's where they end up going. But it's important to note on that road towards that is that they're still making games, and let's face it, Atari reaches that apex of being the video game supreme. Mm-hmm. And then you have these guys that have been working with Atari. I believe there's 4 of them, and I know Crane, but what were their names again?
Their names are, and I would push that out of the way. I can get it for you. Hold on.
Yes.
Their names are David Crane, Larry Kaplan, Alan Miller, and Bob Whitehead.
So these guys, they basically,
They were developers at Atari.
Yes. And so they go to the powers that be and say, hey, we want credit for the games we're making. And the suits basically said, well, no, because you're no better than the guy that's...
Oh, you're no more important than the people who are putting it together or sweeping the floor. And I'm like, dang.
Right, so
they were justifiably fed up with the new regime.
So, they channeled that frustration and said, we can do this ourselves. We're smart. We can just go out and do it. So what did they do? They end up leaving the company and they form Activision, which today, to my knowledge, Activision is still in business. But at that time period, they come out with probably one of the greatest games it's one of my top 10 games, and that would be Pitfall.
Yes.
Pitfall, it's graphically pleasing.
It's like Indiana Jones before Indiana Jones, isn't it?
It's exactly like that. So you got the adventures of Pitfall Harry and going through the woods to find gold, and you've got a timer. And what's interesting about the Pitfall is that the character, it doesn't look like a blob. I mean, it actually, you kind of get an idea that it's an actual person. And the love and the care that Crane put into the game really shows, and it's probably why it was probably one of the number one sought after games, and it ends up being former Atari people that created it. But you do make a valid point that they do want to get out of the business, but before they do,
and they formed Activision, huh?
Yeah, those guys fell into Activision, but I'm talking about Atari. They go off and they decide to make a new system, the 5200.
Yes.
And people lose their mind over it.
Was it backwards compatible or not?
No, in fact...
like they do today.
Yeah. Well, I understand that at the time when the Atari 2600 was in its heyday, you had a machine called the ColecoVision. And the ColecoVision provided an adapter that you could plug in and you could play Atari 2600 games. So, I mean, at that time, could you imagine today an adapter being put on the Xbox to where you could play PlayStation games or anything like that?
They wouldn't allow that because of copyright and royalty, but
I mean,
it'd be awesome as a person who wants to play these games, but from the business side of it, probably a nightmare.
So basically, I guess Atari felt like, okay, well, because keep in mind, you have a new corporation owning it, so they were thinking, well, we need more proprietariness about our equipment. So they made the cartridges a little bit bigger. As a side effect to this, it made it to where the system was not backwards compatible. So you had people that
and this is probably the first instance of being screwed over. Now, we're used to that from PlayStation and Xbox.
So, yeah, you get all these people that they've said, well, I've had this TV forever, and I've had this record player forever.
Or this hardware forever.
Yeah, this hardware forever in general. And now you're wanting me to trade up. Now, it's very commonplace now. It's like every 2 to 3 years we get a new system upgrade. Like, I mean, we're already on PlayStation 4.
Yeah, we're so used to change and like, well, throw that away, get to do this. But this was the first time people were like, here's a newer system. It's bigger, it's better, it's faster, and nothing you have will.
Now, keep in mind that
play.
when when I was talking earlier about the F channel device, the Atari 2600, when it came out, it was $200 to buy, and once again, that's around $700 to almost $800 in 2005 money, adjusted for inflation. So it's understandable that if somebody's telling me, I got to replace this, what, and
yeah, it's like, I imagine it's the same feeling they had when people learned about New Coke.
And I get ahead of myself because we talk about the 5200. But the thing is that before that, we don't talk about the game crash of 1983, and part of that game crash was a result of two games in question. You had Pac-Man, which was a terrible port from the arcade, and
it didn't look like the arcade Pac-Man. It didn't play like the arcade Pac-Man. It didn't quite sound right. It wasn't Pac-Man as people knew it.
It was sad. It was sad. It was almost.
It was like bootleg version almost.
It was almost like if LGN I think it's LJN created the game. That's an insider joke, but it was terrible. Programming wise, it just quite frankly. And what's sad about it is. It's one of those things where, I'm playing it and I'm crying, but then I keep on playing it because there's nothing else to do. And so, we played it, but we hated it, but we still played it again. But that was that. And then you come across the other game that I guess is what has been told to everybody that caused the game crash of '83, and that's E.T., the extraterrestrial. Now, in this situation, you have Atari going out and saying, hey, Steven Spielberg, let us throw money at you so we can have the rights to make a game, and then,
that was a lot of money to throw. Yeah,
they threw a lot of money at him. And so when they came back, they wanted to get this game to Christmas, and that in order to get it to Christmas time, out for Christmas, the programmers only had like 6 weeks to create this game to get it out. And okay. Here's my personal thoughts on that. Now, I think that if the dummies at Atari didn't throw all that cash at Spielberg, I mean, it probably would have been a little bit different if they had not thrown all that money at him and still made an E.T. game. I mean, sure, you're going to have to throw some money, but I think that's one that hurt them. Two,
and it hurt them because was it dull? Was it boring? Was it unplayable? I mean,
you get different comments left and right. Visually, I didn't have a problem with it compared to other games. There were a lot of other games out on the market that really sucked. I mean, E.T. wasn't that bad. I mean, it was a little challenging. I admit that. But
still a playable game.
It's still playable, and compared to some other games. I think it really gets a bad rap, but I think it gets the bad rap because of how everything went down in flames, and that being a part of everything going down in flames was a part of it. So personally, I don't hate E.T. as much as everybody does according to this game. It's playable. I spent hours playing it. I know it's challenging, but I got E.T. home. I mean, he got to go home when I got to play him. So life is good for E.T. as far as I'm concerned. So, but they ended up, what they did was that it was such an embarrassment to them that they ended up burying all these copies of E.T. in a New Mexico landfill. And along with several other titles they had extra copies of. So it was almost like they were trying to bury all the excess embarrassment and try to get it, leave it in the past. But at about that point, you have the Atari 5200 that comes out. You have people that are pissed off because, one, they don't see why they have to replace it. Two, it's not backwards compatible because you have people who have bought all these multiple, games that they've purchased, and, how are they going to play it on the new system? It's unreal. So, and then you start looking at the system itself. The controller was crazy.
On the 5200?
On the 5200. It's about the length of...
that was that really long thing.
The long, like a phone receiver.
Yeah, like a phone in the 80s.
I mean, it had a number pad punch thing.
Yeah, it had like punch dial numbers at the bottom.
Now, the cool feature it did have on it, it had a pause button, which the systems had nothing like that until that time. And... also, the buttons to like push power or to shoot and stuff were on the side, so it made it difficult to actually shoot. And then you moved the joystick that was on top.
Take a swig. Everybody take a drink.
Could you talk for me for a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, here's a bunch of filler talk while we're waiting, and he's back.
We're gonna need to have a post meeting about that.
I'm going straight to bed.
Oh, we'll see. So, 5200 comes out, and then after that, you start having this new guy that's overseeing Atari, and you remember that guy's name?
This wasn't. Where's my notes? Sorry.
Another meeting we're going to have.
I admit to not being really together with this one because I'm not really well versed on the Atari. Is this one where they sold it? I'm trying to read and talk at the same time.
This is the part where you have the guy and they decide that they want to start doing computers and they want to get out of the
they sold to Warner and they said, no more video games, this is silly. Let's start making the Atari a serious home computer. And that's when those guys left and broke off and created Activision.
Also, a 7800 was created, but they kept that they didn't release them. They kept them in a warehouse, so there could have been a chance for them to release a new unit.
So 83, the video games world kind of crashed. In 84, they had a very subdued year, but the price of an Atari 2600 was $40 to $50. Imagine if you could get a gaming console now for $40 to $50.
Well, they eventually do drop them to that low just so they can clear their inventory.
And that's when they released the 7800. And they said, we're going to release the 7800, and then we're going to bring more games to the 2600, and they will have improved graphics and sound, except it never happened.
Right. They once again, they tried to bury it. But their loss was an opportunity for someone else.
Yes.
Do you want to
tell us? No, you're going somewhere with it, and I need to hear where you're going first.
Well, basically, their loss meant that there was a new boy on the horizon, and that would be Nintendo Entertainment Systems.
Who approached Atari and said, hey, we've got this new thing. Would you like the first chance to take the licensing for it for everywhere outside of Japan? Mm-hmm. And they went, nope. Big mistake. Which is
would make it kind of interesting because we all know what happened to Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. It skyrocketed. It took off. There was they saw an opportunity and they took that brass ring
and they went with it.
Now, I guess once they saw Nintendo, and that's Atari, taking off. I guess they decided, well, we've got all these 7800s. Let's start, just getting rid of this inventory and pushing it out there. And then I guess you get close to the beginning of the 90s, and you have someone's return to Atari.
That would be Bushnell?
Mm-hmm.
So the founder comes back, but he said he was more of a consultant.
Yeah, he was more of a consultant, but still, I think when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, he was more of a consultant until they made him a CEO again.
So that's about 1988 when they rehired Bushnell, and they announced some new titles for the 2600, and but by this time they did not have the smash success that they had when they started. So
well, by this time
they're reaching the end.
When you're looking at what you could get from NES versus what you were getting from Atari 2600, it was pretty much a no-brainer as far as graphics was concerned and all that. Even though the graphics had come a long way with the 2600 series, it still wasn't enough because they really kind of shot themselves in the foot by not continuing on and giving the customers what they wanted. And that's where I think they failed too, is they did not listen to their customers and felt like, well, we're going to go this way, and that's not what the customers wanted. The customers wanted it this way, and you have Nintendo coming in. But you have Bushnell coming back in. You have, I think, what in my mind was the last attempt at a system, which was the Jaguar. And although it had, it was the first 64-bit system, I think at that point people were like, they were tired of that, and of course by that time you have systems coming on the market like Sega Genesis, and you have PlayStation,
and things are starting to move away from the cartridge and toward the compact disc. Which, because this is the new media.
So. Yeah, so that is pretty much a kind of an overall history of...
But 17 years dominating the market.
Yeah, they are the shiznit when it comes to video game systems. They are, and what somebody mentioned today was they're the grandfathers of the arcade or the home video game system. And when I heard that, I got to be honest with you, it made me feel really old,
Yeah.
But lovely system, and like I said, fairly recent, within the past couple of years, I ended up going online to eBay to acquire an old system. I got the Atari Junior, like I said, and purchased a bunch of the games that I remember as a kid.
And it's not dead.
No,
it's never going to die. There's always going to be nostalgia and...
Well, now you can go to Walmart and virtually get the Atari Flashback, which is a small little version of the Atari, and it has a set of joysticks that are the same size, and you can play some of those classic games. The only thing I wish they would do is, I've done it. They've done it for the NES, they've done it for Super Nintendo, and they've done it for Sega Genesis cartridges. They've got a system where you can plug these cartridges in a new system.
Yes.
But they have not come out with a system that plays the Atari video games, which I wish they would, to play Atari 2600 and Atari 5200. I'm not sure about the standard on the 7800, but if there were three of them, that would be really great if they came out with a retro version system where you could actually play these cartridges instead of taking one of the units and hopefully it works, or, there's a few places I've found on the internet that actually does refurbishing of these old Atari 2600 and Sears and models, and the various 2600, 5200, and 7800s. And but yeah, I think that there's a need out there, and people my age, grandfatherly, getting there, I guess.
What about something you and I learned about today? I guess it was available back in the day, and I didn't know it never was the StarPath Supercharger.
That was an interesting device. You want to go ahead and elaborate a little bit further on that?
Well, just from what we watched today, this video from one of the stuff from a channel that you like to watch. Well, no, we found it somewhere else. Anyway, it's this.
Yes,
you had a cassette tape.
It was Metal Jesus.
Yeah.
That was...
that's a person on YouTube.
He has his own show about Atari 2600 and other video games.
Yeah. So he brought a guy over that had these vintage peripherals for Atari, and I had never heard of it. I'd never seen it, and it was the craziest looking thing I'd ever seen. So what it is he had an old Walkman, like an old Sony Walkman, and these games are on cassette tapes. And somehow they put them on their program. So you put the cassette in the Walkman, and then through the headphone port, you plug that in to some kind of adapter, and that gets plugged into this weird giant cartridge, like a game cartridge, but it was elongated, and then that goes into the game console, and then you play these games. And they were these officially licensed, or were these homebrew, or were they both?
I thought they were no, they were licensed. They weren't
licensed.
They weren't homebrew.
And they looked really different. They actually looked more.
A good example of this would be a side-by-side comparison to the game Frogger. The original Frogger, the details are not exactly, but, still a nice port to the Atari 2600. However, the game played through this contraption where, it's on a cassette and played through the adapter. A much finer detailed version of the game Frogger, and it was like, wow.
Yeah, we saw that example. It's like night and day, but the problem was load time. Yeah,
the load time was kind of crazy. And so, but the flip side is you got a good-looking game. Now, from what we learned in this video, basically that I guess more recent in history, they end up putting all these games onto a compact disc for audio compact disc, so you can get all these games on one disc and then just play the compact disc through the phone out to this device. And they added a few extra games as a part of the disc that they were selling. Now, I don't know if it's still readily available or not, or...
Well, this apparatus, or these cassette games, are extremely rare. Mm-hmm. And they're extremely rare to find them in their original packing with their original instructions.
Well, he had said he had gone on eBay and found, like, one game alone was a couple of $100 at least. And so, I mean, it's not uncommon to go on eBay to find some of these games, very expensive. I was very fortunate to get a lot of the games I got. I guess I got over 50 games off of eBay. Searching, but I used my ninja skills to.
You pulled out this plastic container. It's not a big plastic container, but it was full of Atari cartridges. I'm like, have you had those the whole time I've known you, or did you just get those recently?
No,
it's like a bucket full of these things.
Yeah, it was recently, and there was on eBay you could do lots where it had a group of them, and I would buy that, or I'd go for the depending on what I'm trying to remember the most expensive one I paid for. I have to say it must have been Pitfall 2, which incidentally, the sequel to Pitfall. Even better graphics, and it had the side scroller, and you could go all over the place. Definitely check that out on video if you can find it on YouTube. Pitfall 2 to see the comparison, and that game was on an Atari 2600. But yeah, I think I spent about $30 for that game, but for the and Pitfall was a rare find too. I ended up spending $20 on that, but I got a deal off of that because I had seen them go for a little bit more than that. Either that, or they were people bidding that just trying to jack the price up. I encountered a lot of that on eBay, but if you're an eBay shopper, I'm sure people have experienced that before. But it's probably the best place to find some of those games, rare games, and depending on how much you want to pay, you're going to pay a price for something rare. But
are you hardcore?
Are you hardcore? Exactly. But I mean, some of the classic games like Combat, I mean, you can snatch those up at a very low price.
Is that the tank?
The tank game and airplanes.
I remember playing the Combat tank game at my friend's house, and I liked that a lot.
Yeah, that was one of the games. I liked one of the tank games had this thing where you could shoot, and it would ricochet off the walls. And then there was if you positioned the tank on the left-hand side, it was kind of like an Easter egg. If you positioned it a certain way, it would shoot through the wall and then shoot the other guy on the other side and behind the protective barrier. So, yeah, it was a fluke or a little glitch in the game, but it was always fun to play. So,
do we need a break or?
Yeah, well, we got a few more minutes. You had mentioned.
Well, Atari had a big influence on the video gaming industry in that it pretty much created it, but it has wider reaching influence. I was just going to mention a few things about that.
Go ahead and shoot.
Well, I guess this must have been during the time when that guy said, "No more video games, let's make some serious home computers." So one of the things they came out with was something called the Atari 520 ST. And the reason I thought this was significant is because you being a musician, this was the first time a computer had been made with MIDI ports, which had never been done before. And
to be honest, when you brought this up, I don't think I recall hearing or seeing this particular device. So I was shocked to hear about that.
Well, you probably didn't have an Atari home computer.
Well, I actually did. I can't remember. I think it was a 600 Atari, because I was talking to you about playing Castle Wolfenstein on that. Where now it's come a long way since I initially saw the first game. So yeah, it was lines and it was quite interesting. But anyway, you were saying
that's funny because we had one brand name computer, the first one we ever had, but after that, we only ever had PC clones. We never had a name brand computer. But the Atari 520 ST, they took these ports and wired them right into the main processor instead of having them like an external parallel bus, and made it extremely effective. And so they accidentally created a powerful and affordable home music computer so people could make their own synthesizer, basically what you do. Mm-hmm. They could do what you do back then, and it didn't cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and you didn't have to be like a sound engineer to make your own music. Mm-hmm. So it had a very tangible impact on music. And of course, to this day, people, including Spaceboy music, are using the retro sounds, the bleeps and the blips and all that, the computer soundtrack noises in your music. And Atari also influenced art. We now have galleries dedicated strictly to 8-bit art, to Atari art, just because of the fondness and the inspiration it engendered. But what always got me is the artwork on the Atari cartridges themselves was really over the top, really well done, really action oriented. But they did this like maybe to make up for the fact the games themselves were so blah when you played them.
Hey, well, that would be a good pickup point. Let's take another break. And when we come back, we will take some calls. You want to take some calls?
I'd love to take calls. It's just people got to make the calls versus take the calls.
713-701-5214. 713-701-5214. Spaceboy Universe. It's my universe, and you're in it. And we will be right back after these messages.
Get your game on Spaceboy Universe. To call in and talk live, dial 713-701-5214. You're listening to Spaceboy Universe. And here's your host, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Yes, it's Spaceboy and Surlana talking it up tonight about Atari.
And chatting it up in Spreaker chat. That's me.
Excellent. Like I said before the break, 713-701-5214 is the number. 713-701-5214. So you were talking about how the device had MIDI, and you were talking about the art thing, which I've seen, and which is really cool.
I actually have a book that's based on that art gallery called I Am 8-Bit.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I just lost my mind there.
What are you doing over there? Are you playing Pogs over there?
You startled me. I just dropped my cap to my water. Yeah, we're a little giddy. But
It is so freaking hot in here.
Well,
I think I'm lightheaded.
It's the halogen light. I think I understand why.
He updated a bulb that burned out, and now it's like hotter than the freaking sun in here.
I am making a quick adjustment.
It's too late now. I said turn it off.
And, okay, now I'm back. I've rolled back to my station. Ooh, yeah.
Oy.
So, but yes.
Well, all I was going to say about that is the artwork on the cartridges themselves and the boxes that came in, how they such diametrically opposite than the actual game. And I think somebody mentioned that in an interview that they did that on purpose because they wanted to give you something to spark your imagination because they knew the game couldn't do it himself.
It's like, wow, this is what's really happening, but okay, I'm playing with blocks. But this is what's happening. This is what the box is. Look at this. The artwork was always impressive on the front of the box, like Asteroids and Missile Command, and some of these were just really just cool to look at.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Well, we all like hearing you type.
Well, I mean, you got to stay engaged.
Yes, well, we love our audience. We love them so much. We just wish somebody would call us instead of just listen there. Just pick up the phone and be a first-time caller and maybe win the T-shirt of the night.
Yeah, free prize. Ask Danny about it.
So
he knows about free stuff.
Tonight's free prize is the Pac-Man T-shirt. That I posted something earlier on. So all you have to do is call 713-701-5214. And so you did not necessarily grow up with the Atari 2600.
Not in my household. Like I said, I periodically could go over and with my friend and her younger brothers. They had one, and that's probably the first experience I had one, other than just going to play random arcade games. And like I said, I had the Odyssey, Magnavox Odyssey 2, and which was crazy about that is I don't recall knowing about it or asking for it, or I don't know who found out about it or bothered to buy it, but the weird thing is they bought it from Dillard's, and we'd go to buy the games at Dillard's because that was the only store that sold it, which, looking back, that's pretty odd.
Well, not really. I mean, you didn't really have a Walmart or a Target hadn't really come into its own yet.
We didn't have a Walmart in my hometown. That's true. Everywhere else did.
But at
that time,
do you remember any of the games you had for the system?
I had Casey Munchkin and a lot of things I can't name, but there was one where all you had to do was lower this helicopter to pick up this guy, and it drove me insane. Then there was like just a race track to get around.
Yeah.
Things that, looking back, like, why was this entertaining? But
well, you had one of the popular games, though. You had the Casey Munchkin game, which is well known.
Knockoff Pac-Man.
Yeah. My, I have many cousins. Another set of cousins had the Odyssey game system, and I occasionally played that, and I loved Casey Munchkin. Was there any other systems that you got to play? I mean, did you play during that time?
No. It was just a matter of not knowing they existed, and I don't know, maybe my interest didn't lie that way. I don't know.
Now, we didn't mention earlier that the competition that the Atari 2600 had was from two other companies. You had Mattel, which was the Intellivision, and then you also had Coleco and the ColecoVision, which was, I guess, Coleco Company. Basically, great systems, but my biggest gripe about both those systems are the joysticks or the remote control things. The ColecoVision basically was it looked like a long brick with a controller on the top with buttons on the side, and then you had The Intellivision, same kind of thing, but they had the punch buttons for 1 through 9, I guess, and then they had an interesting thing where you could slide sleeves in to program your thing. But it
it's like a template or something.
Yeah, and then, of course, they didn't have a joystick. They had a round disc that you pushed. I guess they figured it was easier on your hand than actually pushing a joystick. Now, both game systems had pretty great graphics compared to the 2600. The Coleco, I think, out of all three, 2600, Coleco, and Intellivision, I think had the better graphics of all three. However, and like I said, the ColecoVision had the expansion module, which allowed you to play Atari 2600 games, which was, like I said, nowadays it's unheard of. I had a friend that had one, and we played Donkey Kong on it, and the Donkey Kong port over was pretty comparable to the arcade version, whereas the Atari 2600 version of Donkey Kong was, it was all right. And then, of course, Intellivision had none of those games. They had no arcade games. But they had, one of my favorite Intellivision game was the Astro Smash, where you had to shoot these asteroids as they're coming down from the sky, and if they hit, then it took away points. So you could theoretically never die and build up ships. And there was also these, I guess they called them the neutron stars, that would fall, and if they hit the ground, then that would automatically kill you, whereas an asteroid, it would just hit the ground and take points away. So out of those three systems, Atari still reigned supreme, and I was fortunate enough to play all three systems, but Atari 2600 seemed to reign supreme. Now, I know we've been talking about second generation of arcade home systems, but you have had experiences with other systems before. As far as PlayStation, Genesis?
Not until I
Nintendo
hooked up with you.
So really, it wasn't until
people understand I had a sheltered life, and not that it was bad or anything. I had one friend, and I didn't go out much, and I don't know. That's that. But the one thing that interests me in doing all this research and looking at all the different consoles and the joysticks and the paddles, I'm kind of fascinated by odd things, and the physical interface. Mm-hmm. What intrigued me is like, okay, so here you've got, this has twists, this is knobs, this has got a keypad. What I liked about the Atari, for the most part, it's a joystick with a button, and it's pretty simple, and you've got to code everything you want to do in the game to work with these two interfaces. And then, even though that's probably simplistic form and it's at its best, it's still not ergonomic. Like holding the box with one hand and doing the joystick with the other, it's probably still not comfortable. And then you get those strange long paddles, like you mentioned, like, who is this for, a gorilla? And it's like, it's not. And then when do things finally start changing? Is it the NES where it gets to be more, you got to hold it with both hands, where the buttons are on either side for both thumbs? Well,
that actually was comfortable. Let me break in real quick. It looks like we missed a call from the area code 972. If you want to call us back, I am watching the board. I was distracted by Surlana's lovely beauty over here as she's trying to muck through,
I've been under a blanket till it got so warm from the sun lamp, so...
Well, I turned it off, so we don't have... So if you were calling from the 972 area code, give us a call back. We'd like to hear from you. Sorry I missed you. I know you tried to even call me on the phone here, and I don't answer the cell phone. Oh, okay. Ready for this?
Yes, I'm ready.
Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Joy Brooks.
Hello, Miss Brooks. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, boy?
I'm doing fabulous. So, are you have a game system that you've enjoyed as a kid, or?
Well, you brought back so many memories about Atari. I loved the combat game, except I used to get so irritated when they would shoot me. Like I'd play with my nephew and he would shoot me and knock me out of the view of the screen. And then I'd have to turn myself around and get situated and he'd keep shooting me over and over.
So you
It
know,
was just awful. I'd get so mad I'd want to come back and shoot him all over the place. It was hysterical.
So you know about the hidden.
A lot of good memories.
You know about the hidden shooting from behind, then.
He was shooting me from straight forward, but when he knocked me across my screen, like I was out of sight. I couldn't even see myself anymore. So he would keep shooting, and I kept spinning around. It would irritate me to no end, I swear. I think I was probably about maybe 13.
Well, 13.
But I do miss the joystick, though. I wish that when they came out with all of the new game systems with the buttons, it really threw me for a loop. I was like, oh, God, can I please have the joystick back, please? I was so comfortable with it. I loved it with the button and the little stick and everything. And then they changed everything, and you just had these little buttons. Like I had to relearn how to play video games all over again.
Yeah, it was a very simplistic, just a pointer and then a button, and that was it. Now games,
I didn't like that at all. I really missed the joystick after that. They need to bring that back.
I was making the comparison to the joystick to the devices we're using now, where they've got all these 15,000 buttons that you need to push, and it I don't want to say it's complicated because I've managed to do my own on that, but now it's like sometimes just a stick and a button. That's good enough for me to do what I need to do. I play a game, and you probably audience has probably seen me play Broforce Sunday, and where that game is very simplistic. It's just a couple buttons and
it's a side scroller.
You side scroller. You move the directions where you want to go, and you blow a bunch of crap up. That's all it is, and it's fun. And yeah, so. Any other fun?
Like when they started developing some new games and stuff, like I played Doug and Cubert, which I loved Cubert. I always fell off the top of it, but I always loved Cubert. I don't know if anybody remembers Cubert.
I remember playing Cubert in the arcade.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I loved it. It was cool. Yeah. This is lots of good memories. I haven't thought about this stuff, y'all, in so long. This is like really good memories.
So we got one person that's enjoying.
Find me an Atari system.
Hop on eBay.
I know. I'm going to have to, girl. I'm going to have to. Thank y'all so much. And this is a great show, Space Boy. Good luck with the show, and thank you to your guest. I mean, this is really awesome. Really great memories. I appreciate y'all.
Lori, we appreciate you calling in, and don't be a stranger. Call back anytime, okay?
All right, honey. Y'all have a good show, and I'll keep listening.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
All right. Thank y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Yeah, I forgot about Cubert playing that noise it makes when he's going to block.
The interesting thing, Cubert makes the angry noise when he gets
garbled.
Well, what I remember hearing about the programmer who wrote that, he had the ability to write language, but it was so complicated to write words that he just randomly put something in, and that's how he gets that the language of Cubert. Mm-hmm. And but yeah, that is a good game. What is it, the painting that where you have the different perspectives of people going upstairs and downstairs?
MC Escher?
Yes, thank you. I couldn't remember.
It's like playing an MC Escher game.
That's what he said. He wanted to do a game just like that, and which is really cool. And once again, basic, easy going. Not very complicated, and
I know you don't really want to get into any modern systems like PS, PS2, 3, Xbox, but I don't know where their future lies. We don't have anything beyond a Wii, because I don't think there's any games that you and I care about on the modern consoles, because you and I found, and turned you on to another thing, because we're still PC people.
Well, let me just voice my opinion here. Basically, I feel like those people who got, the runaround with the Atari when they came out with a different system, and there was no backwards compatibility, and so I mean, it's kind of like I feel kind of burnt from PlayStation and then I've never owned an Xbox. I haven't played any games, but I've seen some of the same things that they've done, and then we, I guess I'm just tired of it. It's overly complicated. But you turned me on to Steam
Valve, Steam powered games.
Yes, where basically it's online games where you can download them to your computer. And a lot of good games, a lot of modern games.
They have GTA 5 there. They have all kind of games that you're from all different companies in one place. And you just pay for it, download it, and it keeps your inventory for you and lets you connect to other online gamers if you want to play with them. It's just really cool. And someday, I'm going to find someone out there who will play Prop Hunt with me.
Yeah, well, I just, my thing with the prop hunt is that
I know it's first person perspective. You and I get motion sickness very easily, but I want to do it at least once.
We have another caller.
Yes.
Well, he just.
And he's gone.
Yeah, so caller, when you call in, you got to give us enough time to push the button to like answer the phone call.
We almost have missed the whole show to get it started live because we were.
Here's our caller. I know who it is, but who are you, caller?
This is a Space Invader.
How are you tonight, Danny?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing fabulous, man. You sound great on Skype.
Yeah, it was much better than my cordless phone last week, huh?
Yes, much better.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're in the room with us.
Yeah, well, I'm on a pro headset now. Well, actually, no, I'm on my cell phone. This is just a earbuds with a mic, but Skype really makes.
That's how I've called in. I would call into another program that we're all mutually fans of, and the one time I called in, I was on just my iPhone headphones, and it sounded good to me.
Yeah. So
I've done many shows with this setup, but I also have a pro headset with my PC, and people have said that the sound quality is, they can't really tell the difference between a $10 USB, earbuds and a $100 headset system for my PC, pro headset system.
So Danny, lay us some gaming stuff from you. You were one of our callers last week. We sent you a little thank you for being one of our first callers.
Yeah.
How's the game?
It brings back so many memories. Space Invaders, and it also has 10 games.
It had other games on it.
Yeah, it had other games too.
Yeah, Boggle, Bubble Boggle. Let's see, Quicks.
One of my favorites.
Legend of Cage, Alpine Ski, Puzz, Nick. Some of them I remember, and some of them I don't. But I did learn something because from what y'all were talking about, the Coleco system. I had the Coleco system, and I was not aware that they had an emulator that would have allowed me to play Atari 2600 games, which my friend down the street had the Atari 2600. I would have loved to have that adapter.
Yeah, I had a friend that had the adapter, and it was like, oh, this is cool. But I had Donkey Kong on the 2600, and he had it on the ColecoVision, but the graphics were so much better when it came to the.
So sorry.
We're playing hit the microphones.
We're like, I'm winning.
But the adapter, very cool, and at that time everything was kind of loosey goosey as far as, it's not like today where I was explaining earlier that you don't have like PlayStation creating an adapter to play Xbox games, or you just take your pick. Back then, you had all these third parties making peripherals and other systems trying to, I think Coleco was the major one that did that as far as creating a device.
Yeah, it was interchangeable with Atari.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be unheard of because it would be too awesome and cool.
Right.
What were some of your favorite games off the Coleco?
Well, I remember B-17 Bomber because it was they had a voice module, and when you would start it up, it would say B-17 Bomber.
Well, you know,
like that.
I was going to say that's actually in television. Are you sure? Yeah.
But was that a television?
Yeah, it was in television because I have that game too.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well,
And,
I had the Coleco. Maybe I did have the Intellivision too. Wow, this is going back so far. I should have done some homework before I
See,
called
I
in.
can't contribute to this either. I had none of this.
back in my day, we only had 8-bit and we loved it.
Well, we did.
We walked 20 miles in the snow, and when we got there, we were frozen like a popsicle, and we were happy.
And it was uphill both ways.
Hey, uphill both ways.
And you kids with your hippity hop music.
Oh, sorry.
You kids with your hippity hop music, you don't know what it's like.
Chaos kids. I don't know if I fit into that category, but I really like these the game system that you guys sent me, that you could just plug it straight into your TV and relive all of those memories. It's the joystick. It's got the joystick, 2 buttons on it, and plug it into your flat screen, and you're good to go.
Yeah, you have a lot of them. Walmart has really been pushing them lately, but you can get them on Amazon, and you have these flashbacks. They have the Atari. They have a ColecoVision flashback. They have a Mattel Electronics and Television flashback. They even have a Sega Genesis flashback unit. But what's cool about that one, from what I've seen, is you can plug Sega Genesis arcade, the cartridges games into it, which is frustrating because why couldn't they have done the flashbacks for all of them like that? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that have these 2600 games and ColecoVision games and even the Intellivision games. It would be really great to be able to play them on something that's new and not have to worry about it breaking down, or because a lot of these things, right. I hate to say it, they're like almost like antiques now. But yet it's amazing how solid these things are to still be playing after all these time. So
yeah, it truly is. It's a testament to the way that things were built back then. I don't know. Maybe you guys did research on this, but were the Atari systems manufactured in the United States?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
I don't know if they were or not, but I think that my researcher is looking at that now as we speak. But you've heard earlier about the fact that Nintendo offered Atari an opportunity to be their North America distribution unit to take the area of the world to help them promote the Nintendo, and they just turned it down.
I missed that. I was getting Spreaker reinstalled. I was battling with Spreaker on my new phone.
But you got it installed good, right?
But, yeah, it's installed now. It's all set up.
And like I said, we're on Spreaker now. So people, if you're listening on some other part of the universe, Spreaker is the way to go for Spaceboy Universe. Anyway, continue, Danny.
But Atari really, they made a huge mistake in that deal.
Oh yeah,
not partnering with Nintendo. What I thought was interesting was that the Atari and the Nintendo system were both 8-bit systems, and the graphics quality on the Nintendo just blew away the Atari. As far as I think that had more to do. I guess that had more to do with the maybe the processor that they used.
Was that something they were pointing out? Is the Jaguar was 64-bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's what they came back later when they had the 64-bit system, a Jaguar. But it's really unfortunate because I just think that they really missed their opportunities. And, it's not like Atari's not there anymore. They still manufacture games,
Right.
new games. And from what I understand, they've kind of distanced themselves from the old games and tried to reshape themselves as a game maker of today and the future. So you still find games out there on the market that are brand new. I mean, not necessarily for the past systems, but for what they're doing now. So, I mean, like, here's a game, and I know it's been out for a while, but they did a game called Area 51, which was a shooter where you had 2 guns on it, and you shoot the screen, and supposedly you were at the Area 51, and you had to battle your way out of it, and it was quite an interesting game. But that's a modern game. That's not like Asteroids or Pong or anything. That's, fairly
Right.
recent.
What is Area 51 that you speak of?
I don't know. I think it's some place in
I think it's a
Nevada.
nightclub.
Yeah.
In Nevada.
That's what it is. It was a nightclub.
Well,
in the
drinks
70s,
50%
it was
off.
big in the disco scene.
Yeah,
No, but that was Studio 54.
close enough. Anyway, Danny, you got anything else for us?
I have a short story if you want. About I posted it in chat, and Karen said that she would be interested in hearing it, and it does.
As long
relate
as it's
to the
PG-13 or less.
Atari. And how long?
PG-13?
Rated PG-13 or
Or
less.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Okay, then give us a story.
Okay, so my first computer wasn't the Atari system, but the Atari 800 XL, and I believe it was the 65XE or the 165E.
Right.
It was a more modern, sleek design. That was the system that I got trouble with. I was a minor, and I had a 300 baud modem for it, and
Wow.
I was a part of a international hacking ring and fracking ring. Fracking, Spaceboy, I'm sure you know what that is. Phone hacking.
Yes.
Used to hack into voicemail systems and stuff like that. But back in the day, we used bulletin board systems to communicate. I ran my own and actually hacked into what was called then TRW, now is Experian, Equifax, and whatever the third credit rated agency is.
TransUnion?
TransUnion or something like that.
TransUnion. Yeah. I hacked into that, and
Wow.
that was the way that they that stores would verify credit cards, and I hacked into the administration system and made myself gave myself a store account basically, and this is nothing that I'm proud of now, but it's just a crazy story. Went through the white pages and would type in somebody's name, and this tells you how poor security was back then. You could just type in somebody's name, and it would pull up their credit card number with expiration date and the amount left on the credit card. It would pull up their all their their house, how much they owed on their house, just about anything you wanted, their name, address, and telephone number.
Wow.
And I had a partner in crime on this with me, but we ordered some things, and he would pick the stuff up, and he got tackled. I ordered a voicemail system for it came in a PC, and when he went to pick it up, he got sacked by a UPS guy, tackled him to the ground, and he was an adult. He was 22 years old. I think I was 15, and this was, after many other charges, and I had my voicemail system. When I had my voicemail system, he got caught on something else, on something that I can't talk about. It's not PG-13.
Well, I was going to say that you're telling us so much. I mean,
I guess, have you been tried and absolved of your crimes? Are you all right?
I mean, I hope this doesn't incriminate
you.
Yeah.
No, actually, no, I was caught, and he turned me in he was an adult. I was a minor. He turned me in, and I was actually working, and they came to my work. I saw my dad come into my work, and he never came to my work. I was like, when I saw my dad, I was like, oh, something's going on. I had to leave, and the police took me out, and actually, they ended up, we ended up returning everything that was taken, and I was absolved of all the crimes. And that was my, I think had I been a couple of years older, I probably would have ended up working for one of the alphabet agencies, because of the, because I was hacking at such a young age, and they couldn't believe. TRW was so mad that somebody had hacked into their system with an Atari computer and a 300 baud modem. They were just
but you showed them their vulnerabilities. They could have, like you said, if you'd been older, they could have paid you a lot of money to go in there and do like what they call white hat hacking.
Exactly, which is what I do, a little bit of that every now and then.
Cool.
White hat.
You just reminded me of an advertisement that I remember seeing from the Commodore, where it had the whole setup and the baud modem and the phone setup, and basically I can't remember the guy who hacked the Pentagon with the 64-bit system, and so it just struck back a memory of the everything you were talking about, the boards and everything, because I remember doing that younger, not the hacking part,
right.
At least nothing I want to admit on the microphone right now, and so
war dialers and all that. It all links back to that war games.
Yeah, I was going to say that he put that modem on the thing, and it would hack into his computer, and he could change the grades. And didn't he do something? No, wait, did he do a similar thing in Ferris Bueller?
Yeah, he
did it. I just realized he did the same thing in 2 movies. Oh my goodness!
You're absolutely right. I never thought about that.
It never occurred to me to just now.
Basically, he'd get in trouble so he could find the past. Well,
I wonder if that was an homage to war games
it probably
in Ferris
was.
Bueller.
Probably was, no doubt.
Yeah.
But Danny,
it blew my mind.
That's an interesting story. I'm glad you could share that with us.
I'm glad you weren't prosecuted.
Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't prosecuted either. That was my first experience and last experience with fingerprints, and I'm very happy, because that is they're hard to get off your fingers, that ink.
Thank you.
That's a dang cool story, though.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Danny.
I didn't mean it. We'll talk later, buddy.
Yes.
But I didn't mean to derail the story or the topic, the show topic, but it did relate to Atari, and I really enjoyed that. That's where I learned. Stay at Sparta DOS on the Atari system. That's where I learned how to operate DOS, and eventually moved to the PC. But and have been there ever since. But Atari really did a lot of cool things back then, and I have, outside of the legal issues or the story that I told. As far as the games are concerned, I have a lot of really tremendous memories, and this show has brought back so many. So it was a really cool topic, and I'm glad that you guys brought it up.
Well, we appreciate you enjoying the show, and like I said, with the Spaceboy universe, we want to cover a wide range of topics. We, when I say we, it's mostly
Mostly
me.
he picks the topics, and I go, okay.
I mean, it is my universe, But
'cause I said I don't have a lot to contribute because I didn't have one. I rarely got to play one. I'll just do research.
But the thing I was going to point out is that we go from a show dealing with conspiracy theories, and then the next show is about the Atari age, and then we've done the Skinwalker Ranch, and then it's a little bit kind of broad, but
my favorite's been the conspiracy theories.
We had a good time on that.
It's just better to talk to a third party, so we don't dissolve into this thing we were going through before he hit the button today.
It's a very diverse show, and I think that it's gonna go. You're gonna go a long way with it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and like I said, just tell your friends and tell tell anybody you know, and you're a friend of the show, so call in at any time. And we'd like to hear more stories. Probably less stories that might incriminate you, but
make sure you can't be tried more than one time for your stories when y'all call in.
I certainly wouldn't have told that story had I any worries of incrimination. All of that was that was all resolved. Everybody got their property back, and and it was a learning experience for me. It definitely put me on the path to wanting to learn how to improve security, as years passed, because, I mean, our government websites are getting hacked into every day. So, and business websites, and nobody knows that better than you guys.
That's why I enjoy that show, Mr. Robot.
Have you seen that show?
I have not.
Danny, you need to watch that show.
Yeah, you should see that show.
Like, get on Amazon Video and go pay for each episode or the whole. It's only one season.
Because, Danny, I'm not suggesting that you
would like that show.
You would torrent the show or anything like that.
However you do it, but,
It is a torrent.
Yeah.
I don't know what a BitTorrent is. Is that like Bitcoin?
Yeah. But you should check that. It's Mr. Robot.
It's very trippy, and it's about this guy he works as a computer programmer or something, or a computer engineer, very straight-laced, but he's also deeply troubled, paranoid, schizophrenic, and he does white hat hacking into people's lives, but they don't know it, and he takes out bad guys through hacking their lives.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's my life.
But he's disturbed too. So
definitely check it out. I think you would be pleased with the show. Well, Danny, we appreciate you calling.
Paranoid schizophrenic.
Yeah, we appreciate you calling in tonight, and like I said, call back anytime, and
you can be the guy that calls in if no one calls in.
Yeah, I'm your backup guy. It's
it's our resident caller, Danny.
We're connected the way that we're connected.
Well, you're just from next door in Louisiana.
Yeah, we're next door neighbors.
Yeah, you've been to Shreveport, Danny? Sorry.
Shreveport. Yeah, I've passed through. I don't have any family or friends there, but
that's where I'm from.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we're even closer neighbors at one point.
Yep, you sure
but,
were.
I'm looking forward to meeting you guys at a conference or something one of these days.
If anyone ever has one in Houston, we can meet.
Yeah. I used to live in Houston, in Harris County, and
that's where we are.
That's y'all. Don't mess with Texas.
Dang, Skippy. All right, Danny. You have a great evening.
You too. Thanks for sending this system, guys, and y'all have a great night.
You too.
Good night to everybody that's in the chat room.
All righty.
All right.
Well, that's our friend Danny of the show. And so before we start heading down the ramp to the exit, next week's show, we've got to talk about that.
You better tell people about that.
I know you've just gotten used to this new format of of the Spreaker and all that, and you're jazzed for new shows. But next week, we're going to have to do a repeat show because Surlana and myself have got a shindig to go here to.
A fancy shindig.
Yes, where we get to dress up. I get to wear a tuxedo. She's got herself a nice evening gown.
It's not an evening gown. I look like a sack of potatoes in an evening gown.
Come on. You look fine. But, so our repeat episode for this coming next Saturday is going to be conspiracy theories. And with our special guest that we had that night, Gordon Roop.
Yes.
Yes, I was like, did you just zone out over there?
Looking at chat, trying to figure out what people are talking about. So
I'm a demon.
Don't start that again. Oh God.
But yeah, it's a repeat, and Gordon has updated his book, and you'll get to hear him talk a little bit about it, but he has updated the book in question, so tune in this coming Saturday. I'm sure he's going to be excited to know that we're repeating that show. But we should be back the following week, which is the, I guess, Thanksgiving weekend.
Is it?
Yeah, I believe it is. Wait
a minute.
You might want to...
Let me verify. Okay. Sorry. Every time I move something on this table, because it's a very flimsy table, it just echoes, and
we spare no expense for the studio equipment.
It's a cheap foldable table from a national retail.
So as she's verifying that...
It's the 21st is when we'll be back.
Yeah, so that's...
But that's not Thanksgiving weekend. Now, wouldn't that be the 26th and 27th, Thanksgiving?
I guess so. So was that the Saturday before?
Yeah.
Okay, well then...
And on the 28th, we should still be doing our thing.
We will have a brand new show then, too.
It'll be back to normal from the 21st on.
And, yes, so, just deal with this repeat. Just know that we've hooked you up on Spreaker, which I hope is fabulous. I hope people are out there.
In fact, I heard some people chat saying it's giving them ideas.
Oh, I like that. Mm-hmm. Yes, we like ideas.
That they might do something similar.
Oh, well, it's a big universe out there.
Hey, and even if we don't have anything to tell you, go ahead and tweet us topic ideas, things you'd like to hear us cover. Because, we're not limited to any one subject or genre.
That's a good point. I
have a half-baked idea on something I'd like to talk about, but...
Is it about the internet?
Oh, about the internet, the early days, because you and I were there. Oh, my God. The early 90s. Sure, things sucked, and then,
Newsflash, Peoria. The internet was wonderful back in the early 90s.
It was just a freaking free-for-all, and then, there's a turning point where now we're worried about all these new things that we never worried about before in our lives, so it'll be cool to talk about.
Bottle it. I thought also we could maybe talk about the dark web, too.
That's been covered recently, but I've done some extensive research, and I have that person's ebook I could read.
Okay. I would like to do a show on that. That would sound like a good topic. I'm sure that there are other topics, but our show depends on you too as well. We like the audience to participate, and if you've got an idea for a show, let us know, or even a guest idea.
You want to talk about Windows 3.1? I had it. I remember it clearly, and I was in tears when my dad moved us from 3.1 to Windows 95 because it was so different. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, what was I worried about?
So, that would be interesting. So, remember, next week, this next Saturday.
The 14th.
The 14th will be a repeat show. But she'll get a quality show off of Spreaker and, experience what we've been leading up to this.
We'll be back on the 21st as normal. And another thing for anybody who's fans of Spaceboy, the man himself, or as I call him, James, just so you know, his birthday is on the 18th of this month.
Okay.
So send your birthday tweets on that day.
Thank you for buttering me up. But... Lori, if you're still listening out there,
she said she sent something. I said she could send it to me at PM on Facebook,
okay,
or to contact@spaceboyuniverse.com.
Yeah, that's about right. Yes. Yeah, so Lori...
She said send it Spaceboy, so hopefully she's sent that. So
Okay, awesome. Yeah, congratulations, Lori. You'll be able to get the extra large Pac-Man T-shirt, being one of our first callers tonight. You will get to experience Pac-Man T-shirt in all its glory, and we hope you enjoy it. Anything else we need to address? Anything we need to add?
Sorry, a sort of slapped together show. When we have a little friction before the show, it kind of puts the bad juju on it, like it did on our animation show. When we talked about animation, that was a crap fest. But that's why he was like, it was like 8:59. He's like, oh crap,
But the reality is that the dynamics that get interjected. I mean, sure, we're still learning the ins and outs of what we need to do to provide a good quality show. The dynamics between both of us, it translates into something funny and humorous that I hope that our audience enjoys listening.
It's called marital angst, and apparently it's hilarious.
Yes. Marriage, it's funny. Yes, very funny. I think Dennis just sent in a thing that there's some kind of Bigfoot meetup in Webster, Texas,
where we met.
Yeah, we're actually out from that area where we met.
So I lived there, you lived there, we met, we dated, we married. Everything happened in Webster.
Yes.
Oops,
so,
sorry.
All right. Well, Lori, you'll get your shirt if you send in the information. Dennis, we'll look into the Bigfoot thing, which is interesting. I know that Chris has sent me a message. I'll follow up with you on that, and talk to the executive producer about that. And as
Who's
far
the
as
executive producer?
You're the executive producer.
But you do more producing.
I know, but
you push that button over there.
You're much more executive producer than I am. I'm more the host.
If I was executive producer, I would be picking the topics. So clearly, I'm not an executive producer.
Well, look, I think we've had this production meeting where you just need to lay down some topic ideas, but I think we're heading in a good direction.
Well, I'm still pleased that we did this one because at least it wasn't like this heavy, soul-crushing, spooky, scary, disturbing information to deal with. So,
well, I agree with you. There are times when you can do a show like that, which we're going to do. Even bring some more guests on and do guest shows. But then there are times when you need a show like this, like the Atari show, which it's a palate cleanser,
Yes, we needed a palate cleanser in the worst way.
So, I mean, life can be rough, and sometimes you need to be reminded of where you've been, and Atari is something to me personally that means a lot, and it brings back such memories as a kid.
There's a couple people just joined, but they're on the tail end of it. So,
well, the great thing about the show is that once we're done here and I click the end button for the show, it will process and it'll be uploaded to YouTube, SoundCloud. And you can, I guess, get to those via either spaceboyuniverse.com through the links
there. It's
there.
embedded in the front page of Spaceboy Universe.
Eventually, the Spreaker app or the Spreaker embedded app is located on both the main page and the show's page. So
I haven't looked at the app on my phone. I'm thinking we must be there too, right?
Yeah, we're there too. It's a big universe, and we're filling it up. So, if you're joining us late, hey, not a problem. We have a repeat show, and we have other shows that you can check out. Also, Surlana and I do a show called Data Bites. It's Spaceboy Universe, but basically it's just a topic that we take a few, like 10 minutes or less. We'll talk a little bit about it. Our last topic we did, or our first topic.
Review of The Martian.
The Martian. I enjoyed it.
And we fanboyed all over it.
And we talked about it. Matt Damon.
Don't start that. Swear to God.
Oh, and a Matt Damon.
And the other one you did. The other voice you did. Spacey, you in there?
Hey, Spacey, you in there?
Like, Please point out the movies where Matt Damon did these voices because I must see it.
But I mean, it's all good in the neighborhood. Hopefully, somehow we'll get to go see James Bond. We'll just see how that goes.
If it's opening weekend, you don't want to go this weekend. So.
Well, we go, early bird special?
I know. Why do you take me to movies I don't care about at the crack of dawn?
They're not at the crack of dawn. It's like 10 o'clock.
That's the crack of 10 of dawn clock.
No, it's not.
No, I don't like it.
The crack of dawn is like, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't get you up at that time. I usually...
If you could get away with it, you would do it. You would do that.
It's like this.
And then you would be cracked at dawn, let me tell you.
The thing is that when I get up in the morning, I usually get up around 6. So to me, the sleep late is like a couple hours after 6. So 6, 7, 8. So at 8 o'clock, that would be sleeping late to me. You generally get up at 5 in the morning. But yet you want to sleep until like 10 or 11.
Because I've earned that right, having to get up every day, 5 days a week at 5 o'clock in the morning to drive 17 miles to work and then 20 miles back. I've earned that right.
I know, but usually we've got so much to do.
Why do we have so much to do? Can't we just chill?
Well,
for heaven's sakes.
We do chill.
40 minutes of chill time is not chilling.
Well, it could have been like 50 minutes if you didn't kick me out of the bed before telling me.
It was like 8:45. I was like, hey, shouldn't we be doing some like pre-show sound checks or something? And then, and we were like, and I'm like, hey, are you going to push that button over there? It's 8:59. It's your show, man.
Yes.
You're the one that wanted to do it. Oh, sorry.
And there goes another mic hit.
When you punch the table, it's time to go.
Speaking of which,
I got myself tickled.
Giddy with laughter. So once again, repeat of the show next Saturday.
Saturday 14th is going to be a repeat of our Conspiracy Series show with the wonderful, knowledgeable Gordon Roop, who has his, I think he has his expanded version of his Conspiracy Evolution out.
Yes. Which
we would like to get him back, talk about either that or something else he wants to talk about.
Well, we talked about possible other topics.
He's gone off. He sent me some messages saying, give me a couple days, I'll come back with some topic ideas. I'm like, fantastic, because our wells are running dry.
Well, I wouldn't say it's running dry. It's just we can use the public opinion on what they would like to hear. We could do. Doesn't Twitter have a poll thing now? I'm sure we can figure something out. Do you want us to do this, or just shut up? I don't know. All right, people. So I know we have a couple more minutes until actual shutdown, but I am going to roll us out of here. This has been Spaceboy Universe, and you've been listening to Spaceboy and Surlana. Spaceboy Universe is produced by Spaceboy and Surlana. Duh, no kidding. And go ahead and check us out on the internet. That's spaceboyuniverse.com. So join us next week. November the 21st live. Yes. Repeat on the 14th. Yes. So until then, have a great evening, and we'll see you then.